It was supposed to be a simple drive until everything unraveled on a lonely road outside Shawnee, Oklahoma. Cynthia Hargrave, wealthy, powerful, and always in control, now stood powerless, frustration gripping her chest tighter than the designer blouse clinging to her back. She checked her phone. No service, no bars, no mercy. The road stretched silent in both directions, not a soul in sight, until there was. Help, or something else entirely, had arrived. He didn't offer hollow smiles or ask unnecessary questions. Just observed. "You all right, ma'am?" Cynthia's pride flared. She wanted to say yes, to wave him off and pretend she wasn't stranded. But the hiss of the engine told the truth. Car overheated. No signal. "I've been stuck for 40 minutes. Deshawn only nodded, eyes scanning the leaking coolant with silent expertise. He asked if he could take a look. She hesitated, but there was something in his presence. Something grounded. She let him. Within minutes, he diagnosed the issue. Cracked radiator hose. "I got a spare. Not the same brand, but it'll get you into town." He fixed it with practiced ease, refusing money when offered. Why help if you don't want anything? He only smiled faintly and turned back to his truck. But as he moved, something gleamed, catching Cynthia's breath in her throat. A necklace. Small. Gold. With 2 letters engraved faintly, JH. 2 letters from a name Cynthia buried years ago. Her voice cracked as old grief rushed up. "Where did you get that necklace?" Deshawn hesitated. More than just casual discomfort. His hand instinctively brushed the pendant like it was a part of him. "Lady who raised me gave it to me when I was a kid. Said it belonged to my mother." Cynthia's world tilted. Her sister, Janine, vanished 22 years ago after a bitter family rift. Pregnant, defiant, determined to keep her child. A child who, until now, had simply disappeared from every family memory and record. Could this quiet stranger standing before her be that child? Her nephew? They sat, swallowed by dusk and heavy silence. Deshawn pulled out an old photo from his wallet, a faded image of a young woman cradling a baby. Cynthia's knees buckled. "That's her. That's Janine." Deshawn looked stunned. He had grown up never knowing. Foster homes. Unanswered questions. Only a necklace and vague stories to hold on to. "Guess she left me at the church. That's what Dolores always told me. Said my mom wanted me safe." Cynthia swallowed back tears, guilt crashing in waves. She had turned away from Janine when it mattered most. Later, at a diner bathed in harsh fluorescent light, Cynthia and Deshawn sat in quiet reflection. "I was cold back then. I told her keeping the baby was reckless, that she'd ruin her life." Her voice cracked. "I told her no when she asked for help. I was busy building my life. I pushed her away." Deshawn listened, his face unreadable. "She must have loved me, to leave me with that necklace." Cynthia nodded, wiping tears before they could fall. 2 strangers now bound by blood and years of unresolved heartbreak. They agreed they had to know. A late-night DNA test, 2 swabs, and a wait that felt eternal. By midnight, Cynthia's phone buzzed. She stared at the result, breath shallow. "It's a match." Deshawn closed his eyes, the weight of 2 decades landing all at once. No cheers, no joyous reunion, only the quiet understanding of what had been lost and what could now be rebuilt. Days passed. Cynthia texted. Deshawn responded, cautious, yet willing. Soon, she invited him for dinner. No assistance, no speeches, no pretenses, just family trying. They ate in simple silence, sharing glances, smiles, and slowly stories. At the end, Cynthia offered him a small box. Inside, a silver bracelet, Janine's, engraved with words that rang truer now than ever. "Love doesn't quit." Deshawn clutched it gently. She used to say that. As Deshawn left that evening, Cynthia stood at the doorway, heart warm but still uneasy. The truth had reunited them, but a question still burned quietly inside her. What really happened to Janine? Why had she vanished after leaving Deshawn behind? Where did she go? And most chilling of all, old emails, old phone calls. She's doing something she never dared to before, pulling Janine's files from the past. The DNA confirmed the blood. But blood only answers who, not why, not how. Cynthia knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. She found herself staring at a missing persons PDF. The last police file from Janine's case. Date closed, 2001. Reason, no evidence of foul play. Her jaw tightens. No evidence. No effort. Nobody even tried. Suddenly a buzz. Text from Deshawn. Thinking about heading to Tulsa. Talk to someone from Dolores Old Church. They remember something weird from back then. Cynthia stares at the message. The door they had carefully shut is about to be kicked wide open. There was a young woman back then. Came in almost every night. Alone. Scared. He looks at Deshawn. She never gave her name. We just knew she had a baby. One night, she left the child with a note and never returned. Cynthia's face tightens. Deshawn's hands ball into fists. But you never called the police? We didn't know how. She left in the middle of the night. When we called, social services handled it. Quietly. Quietly. That word sent a chill down Cynthia's spine. Quiet like shame. Quiet like erasure. But Father Elliot's eyes darken as he adds. There was someone else too. A man. Came here once. Angry. Searching for her. Cynthia and Deshawn share a glance. No one ever mentioned a man before. A shadowy figure pounding on the church doors. Screaming Janine's name. The caretaker refuses entry. Later that night, Janine vanishes forever. Janine didn't just disappear. She was running. And maybe she wasn't running alone. Back in Cynthia's car, the atmosphere is thick with tension. Who was that man? If we find him, we find answers. Deshawn nods grimly. They decide to start with Janine's past. Her old boyfriend, Travis Kent. A name Cynthia hadn't spoken in years. A name no one wanted to remember. Janine? Haven't seen her since '01. She left me. She was crazy anyway. But his body language tells another story. When Deshawn asks about Janine being pregnant when they split, Travis freezes. That wasn't my kid. Told her to get lost. His hostility is palpable, yet beneath it, fear flickers. Something didn't add up. Travis seemed too eager to deny, too rehearsed. Before they leave, Deshawn glances at Travis' necklace, an old biker emblem. A subtle but crucial detail. Later that night, Cynthia does a web search. A hit. Travis Kent, arrested in 2002. Domestic violence. Pled out. Charges dropped. But that wasn't what made Cynthia's blood run cold. The arrest record listed his address at the time. 120 South 36th Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma. The same street as St. Brendan's Church. He lived next door when Janine vanished. He lived right there. All this time. No one knew. Cynthia nods, tears glistening. What if he didn't just threaten her? What if he did something to her, and no one ever asked? The weight of it crashes down. For Deshawn, it's rage and heartbreak. For Cynthia, it's unbearable guilt. Maybe Janine didn't abandon anyone that night. Maybe she never made it out. Deshawn makes a bold decision. He calls the Tulsa PD. Reopens Janine's missing persons file. Within a week, cadaver dogs are sent to search near the old church grounds. An unmarked lot behind Travis's former trailer, used for illegal dumping back in the day. Hours pass. Then, SFX, a handler's voice echoes in the distance. We've got something. Cynthia and Deshawn rush over, hearts pounding. The camera zooms in on a shallow pit, bones. Small. Human. The screen fades to black as Cynthia breaks down sobbing, clutching Deshawn. 22 years. Forgotten. Buried. Until now. But even in death, Janine's story isn't over. Because next comes the real trial. Breaking tonight, a shocking cold case breakthrough as police confirm human remains found behind a Tulsa church are those of Janine Hargrave, missing since 2001. A man, Travis Kent, now faces charges of second-degree murder and obstruction of justice. The past had been patient. For 22 years, Janine Hargrave lay beneath dirt and dust. But when truth whispers long enough, someone listens. He's no longer the cocky drunk they met. Pale, weathered, broken. Justice didn't care about time. Only truth. Janine Hargrave didn't run. She didn't abandon. She tried to escape. And for that, she paid with her life. The courtroom is still as Dolores, Deshawn's foster mother, takes the stand. I always wondered why she left him at the church. Now I know she was running from something terrible. Deshawn looks down. Cynthia squeezes his shoulder softly. This isn't just justice. It's reclaiming Janine's voice. She was troubled. She left voluntarily. But the forensic pathologist's voice cuts through. Blunt force trauma. Defensive wounds. She fought hard. Gasps in court. She didn't fade away. She fought until her last breath. I grew up thinking she left me. Thinking maybe I wasn't worth staying for. But today, I know different. He looks Travis directly in the eyes. You didn't just steal her life. You stole my mother. The room is silent. Even Travis looks down, avoiding Deshawn's unblinking stare. Jury finds the defendant guilty of second-degree murder. A collective exhale ripples across the room. Travis shows no emotion as he's led away. But Cynthia and Deshawn, they embrace, not tight, not joyful, but deeply. Justice doesn't fix. It doesn't heal. But sometimes it makes space to start. Photos have changed. No more real estate awards. Now framed photos of Janine, Cynthia, and even Deshawn himself. Family. They sit over coffee, softer than before. You know, if you ever want to call me Aunt Cynthia, I won't correct you. Deshawn laughs softly. Slow down. Let's get through another Thanksgiving first. Laughter. The first true moment of light. He pulls over, stares at Janine's old bracelet hanging from his rearview mirror. His face is calm until his eyes lower. In his hands, a letter, unopened, stamped from Janine, dated 2 weeks after her disappearance. But even now, one last truth waits. A letter, found only after Travis' arrest, hidden inside an evidence box. If something happens to me, please, find Deshawn. Janine never gave up. Someone else did. The Oklahoma sky was a canvas of molten gold, the sun dipping low as Cynthia Hargrave stood on her front porch, the air thick with anticipation. In her hands, she held a weathered envelope, its edges frayed, the ink faded but still legible. To my sister, Cynthia. The handwriting was unmistakable, Janine's. Inside, a single sheet of lined paper trembled in her grasp. The words, penned in a hurried scrawl, seemed to echo Janine's voice, each sentence a whisper from the past. Dear Cynthia, if you're reading this, then fate has finally bridged the chasm between us. I never intended to vanish from your life, but circumstances left me no choice. Do you remember the summer we spent by Lake Eufaula? The sunburns, the laughter, the dreams we wove under the stars? I clung to those memories when the world turned cold. When I discovered I was pregnant, fear consumed me. Our parents' disappointment was palpable, and I felt like a pariah in my own home. But the moment I felt him kick, I knew I had to protect him, even if it meant sacrificing everything else. I named him Deshawn. He had your eyes, Cynthia, sharp, observant, filled with unspoken questions. But I was drowning, unable to provide the life he deserved. Leaving him at St. Brendan's was the hardest decision I've ever made. I left him with the necklace Grandma gave me, hoping it would be a beacon to his origins. I wandered for years, haunted by the choices I'd made. I sent letters, but they were returned unopened. I wanted to come back, to explain, to seek forgiveness. But shame anchored me in silence. If Deshawn finds you, tell him I never stopped loving him. That every day apart was a wound that never healed. And Cynthia, I'm sorry for the pain I caused you. I hope one day you can forgive me. With love, always. Janine. Tears blurred Cynthia's vision as she clutched the letter to her chest. The weight of years lost, of words unspoken, pressed down on her. But amidst the sorrow, a flicker of hope ignited. Janine's words were a bridge, a chance to mend the fractured tapestry of their lives. She stepped back inside, the letter still in hand, and picked up her phone. Her fingers hovered over Deshawn's contact before she pressed call. Aunt Cynthia. His voice came through, tentative. Deshawn, she whispered, voice thick with emotion. I have something to share with you. A letter from your mother. Silence hung between them, heavy with anticipation. "I'd like to read it to you," she continued. "I'm listening," he replied. As Cynthia began to read, the past and present intertwined, weaving a new narrative of understanding, forgiveness, and the enduring bonds of family. For Cynthia Hargrave and Deshawn Mercer, the letter wasn't just words on weathered paper. It was the key to a door that had stayed locked for far too long. But keys don't always lead to answers. Sometimes they lead to deeper questions. She mentioned Tulsa and St. Brendan's. "That's where you were left." Deshawn quietly, "Yeah, but after that, it goes dark. Dolores always said she didn't know more than that." Cynthia, "Then we start there. Every journey backward begins with the places left behind." Deshawn, "I've been here before, but not like this." Pastor Reed, "You're asking about Janine Hargrave?" Cynthia, surprised, "You remember her?" Pastor Reed, nodding solemnly, "Quiet girl. Used to sit right over there in the back pew, every Sunday. Alone. Until one day, she wasn't here anymore." Deshawn, "Did she ever say where she was going?" Pastor Reed, "No, but she left this with us. Said to hold on to it, just in case someone ever came looking." Cynthia whispers, "She went south. The trail wasn't much, but it was enough." Maria, thoughtful, "Janine, yeah. She stayed a few months. Real sweet but broken. Always clutching this little gold necklace. Wouldn't talk about her past." Cynthia, "Did she leave with anyone?" Maria, hesitant, "A man. Rough type, but she trusted him. Said they were heading west. California, maybe. She never said goodbye." Deshawn murmurs, "Always running. Each page, each clue, pushed them forward, toward a version of Janine they never knew. Older woman. She rented a room from me for years. Sweet girl. But she passed. About 8 years ago. Older woman, CONT'd. She always talked about her boy. Said she hoped he'd find her one day. She left something behind. Janine had not abandoned her past. She carried it, quietly, painfully, lovingly. I dream of him sometimes. What he'll become. I hope he has kind eyes and steady hands. I hope he forgives me." Cynthia, "She didn't leave you, Deshawn. She tried. Life just didn't let her win." Deshawn, softly, I think I can forgive her now." Cynthia, "Maybe it's time to forgive ourselves, too. Closure doesn't come with answers. It comes with acceptance." Janine's story ended, but theirs was just beginning. The weeks that followed weren't loud. No arguments. No tears. No proclamations. Just quiet, but a different kind of quiet than before. Where once there had been distance and awkward pauses, now there was space. Room to breathe. Room to figure things out. Cynthia and Deshawn didn't rush it. Their calls were irregular at first, a few short check-ins, mostly about mundane things. Cynthia would share photos of sunsets from her backyard, or articles she found about places Janine might have been. Deshawn would send occasional updates about projects he was working on, fixing up an old bike for a neighbor's kid, or tuning an engine late at night. It wasn't much, but it was more than nothing. And somehow, it was enough for now. It was Cynthia who broke the pattern first. A simple message on a Thursday night. "You around Sunday? I'm cooking again. Just felt like company." Deshawn didn't overthink it. He simply replied, "Yeah, I'll be there." When he arrived, it wasn't awkward anymore. Cynthia greeted him at the door with an easy smile, wearing faded jeans and a soft sweatshirt. No makeup, no perfectly arranged hair. Just her. For once, she wasn't trying to impress anyone. They ate on the back patio that night. Cynthia grilled steaks, not perfectly, a little burnt around the edges, but Deshawn didn't mind. They drank lemonade, talked about music, shared stories about growing up. For the first time, Cynthia opened up about her childhood, how competitive and cold her parents were, how Janine had always been the rebellious one, how she had chosen ambition over emotion for years, thinking it made her strong. Deshawn listened quietly, his face lit softly by the string light Cynthia had hung along the fence. And when she finished, he didn't judge. He simply said, "People don't always know what they need until it's too late. But it ain't too late anymore." Cynthia's eyes misted, not from grief, but something new. Hope. A week later, they took another step. Together, Cynthia suggested they visit her childhood home, or what remained of it. The house had been sold years ago, but the neighborhood was still the same. Deshaun stood on the cracked sidewalk, staring at the house that had once held his mother, Janine. Cynthia pointed out old landmarks. That window was Janine's room. She used to sneak out onto the roof. That swing, we fought over it every day after school. The memories came easily now, no longer sharp with regret. As they stood there, Cynthia turned to Deshaun. She's everywhere here. It's strange, but I can almost feel her watching us. Deshaun smiled faintly. Or maybe she's just glad we found each other. The wind rustled through the trees, as if in silent agreement. Soon, Deshaun became a regular part of Cynthia's life. She introduced him to friends, cautiously at first. Not as her nephew, but just as Deshaun. But people noticed. Her assistant whispered, "You seem softer these days, Cynthia." Even Cynthia noticed. Her home, once sterile and filled with cold modern art, slowly became warmer. Family photos appeared on shelves. An old record player got dusted off and used again. Laughter, real laughter, echoed through rooms that had been silent for years. Still, there was something unspoken between them, a gap neither was sure how to close yet. Janine. The wound remained. Neither knew how to honor her properly. Not yet, but they knew they'd face it eventually. Together. It was during their third dinner, tacos this time, simple and messy, that Deshaun surprised Cynthia. He set his fork down, cleared his throat. "I found something." Cynthia looked up, confused. Deshaun pulled out a weathered envelope. Janine's handwriting. "I went back to St. Brendan's. The old pastor, he retired, but his niece found this among his old things. It's addressed to me. From her." Cynthia's hand flew to her mouth. Deshaun hesitated, then slid the envelope across the table. "I haven't read it yet. Thought we should read it together." Cynthia's hands trembled as she carefully unfolded the faded letter. The room fell silent as she began reading aloud. "To my baby boy, and to whoever is with you when you read this." Deshaun's eyes glistened. Cynthia's voice wavered. "I'm sorry I couldn't be the mother you deserved. I loved you more than words, but I couldn't give you what you needed. I wasn't strong then. I was scared. But you were never unwanted. Never." Cynthia's voice cracked. Tears slid freely now. "Please know, wherever life takes you, you carry my heart. Always." By the time she finished, Cynthia and Deshaun sat in silence. No more anger. No more confusion. Only love. Raw and real, stretching across years, across losses, across mistakes. Cynthia wiped her face and reached across the table. Deshaun took her hand, squeezing it tight. They didn't say anything more that night. They didn't need to. But when Deshaun left hours later, he hugged Cynthia for the first time. Not as a stranger, not as a mechanic, but as family. Months passed. Photos of Deshaun began filling Cynthia's shelves. Holiday gatherings included him now, and slowly, his friends and his world began merging with hers. The past still lingered, of course. Janine's memory remained a quiet ghost in their lives. But now it wasn't a haunting. It was a presence, guiding, gentle. And when Cynthia spoke about her family in interviews, she always included Deshaun's name with pride. Because healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering and building something better with what remains. But just when Cynthia thought closure had finally arrived, a letter arrived from Tulsa, a name she didn't recognize. A woman claiming to have known Janine during her final days. And attached to the letter, a faded photograph of Janine, standing beside a little girl. Not Deshaun, another child. The letter ended simply, "I think it's time you knew the whole story." It arrived on a Tuesday. Ordinary, unremarkable, until Cynthia saw the handwriting on the envelope. Not familiar, but urgent, uneasy. The return address read, Emily Darden, Tulsa. She almost didn't open it. She almost filed it away with the hundreds of letters and cards she had collected over her long, complicated life. But curiosity, no, something deeper, dread, tugged at her. So she sat at her kitchen table, alone, and carefully slid her finger beneath the flap. Inside was a letter written in soft, careful penmanship. and a photograph so faded it seemed almost dreamlike. It showed Janine, unmistakably Janine, smiling faintly at the camera. But she wasn't alone. Standing beside her, no older than 5 or 6, was a little girl. Wide eyes, tight curls, holding Janine's hand like it was the only anchor she had in the world. Cynthia's stomach dropped. This wasn't Deshawn. This was another child. Her hands trembled as she read the letter. Dear Cynthia Hargrave, you don't know me, but I knew your sister. Janine was my best friend when she stayed at Haven House in Tulsa. I'm writing because you deserve to know. Janine didn't just leave behind Deshawn. Cynthia's throat tightened as the words blurred before her eyes. She had a daughter, too. Her name was Alana. The room spun. A daughter? Another child lost to time, to mistakes, to silence? Cynthia clutched the photo tightly, her heartbeat loud enough to drown out the world. She wasn't ready for this. But ready or not, the past had kicked open her front door again. That night, Cynthia didn't sleep. At 1:37 a.m., she finally gave up pretending. She grabbed her phone and called Deshawn. It's late, he answered groggily but calmly. I know, Cynthia said quietly, but I need you to come over. Now. 20 minutes later, Deshawn was on her doorstep. No questions, no irritation, just concern etched deep into his eyes. She didn't waste time. She placed the photo and letter on the table. As Deshawn read, his jaw tightened. She had another kid? He asked, his voice almost a whisper. Cynthia nodded slowly, unable to speak. So I might have a sister? The word sister hung in the air like a foreign concept neither of them knew how to handle. Where is she now? Deshawn asked, his voice shifting from shock to determination. Cynthia shook her head. Emily didn't say. Just that Janine left Haven House with Alana shortly before she died. Silence wrapped around them again, heavier than before, but not paralyzing. This time, they both knew what they had to do. We find her, Deshawn said firmly. Whatever it takes. Cynthia nodded. This was no longer just about redemption. It was about family. The next morning, they drove to Tulsa together. The Haven House shelter still stood, though faded and smaller than Cynthia had imagined. Inside, they met with the director, a kind woman named Naomi, who had run the shelter for over 30 years. When they showed Janine's photo, Naomi's face softened. Janine, she said fondly. She stayed with us about 6 months. Sweet but troubled, protective of her little girl. Alana, Cynthia whispered. Naomi nodded. She adored that child. But Janine was sick toward the end. She tried hiding it, but we knew. She often coughed blood. Cynthia's heart clenched. Janine hadn't abandoned them. She had been dying. What happened to Alana after Janine passed? Deshawn asked quickly, voice tight. Naomi hesitated, then sighed. She was placed into emergency foster care. I believe she was adopted within a year. The records were sealed. Cynthia felt her breath leave her. Sealed. To protect the child. Naomi explained softly. That's how the system works. A dead end. Almost. But Deshawn wasn't ready to give up. Emily, she must know more, he said sharply. Naomi nodded slowly. Emily was Janine's closest friend here. She lives nearby. I'll call her. Emily Darden was in her early 50s now. Soft-spoken, warm. She welcomed them into her modest home, where framed photos lined every surface. But none showed Janine or Alana, until Cynthia asked. Emily retrieved a small, weathered box. Inside, dozens of candid snapshots. Janine and Alana playing in a park, reading books on a cracked front porch, holding each other close during a Christmas at the shelter. She loved that girl fiercely, Emily said, her eyes wet. Even when Janine got sick, she never let Alana see her weak. Cynthia's chest tightened. Do you know where Alana went after Janine died? Emily hesitated, then nodded. Yes, she was adopted by a family in Kansas. The Millers. They renamed her. Lila. Deshawn leaned forward. Lila. Is she still there? Emily nodded sadly. She's 21 now. College student in Wichita. Still goes by Lila Miller. The room fell deathly silent. She doesn't know about Janine, does she? Cynthia asked softly. Emily shook her head. No. They told her mother died young and troubled. Nothing more. Deshawn sat back, exhaling slowly. So she doesn't even know we exist. The weight of that hit harder than anything yet. A sister. And she didn't even know she had a brother. An aunt. A family. That night, back at Cynthia's house, neither of them said much. Until Cynthia finally broke the silence. We have to find her, she said quietly. And then what? Deshawn asked, almost fearful. Drop this on her life out of nowhere. Cynthia hesitated. No, not like that. But carefully, respectfully. She deserves the truth, but we need to protect her too. Deshawn stared at the ceiling, weighing everything. You think she'll want us? I don't know, Cynthia admitted, voice trembling. But wanting isn't the point anymore. She deserves to choose. And with that, they agreed. They would reach out to Lila Miller, not as strangers, not as ghosts from a broken past, but as what they were, family. 3 days later, Cynthia typed carefully, hand shaking slightly. Dear Lila, I hope this letter finds you well. My name is Cynthia Hargrave, and I believe I may be your aunt. She sent the letter, and for days, silence followed, until her phone rang late one night. Unknown number. She answered hesitantly. A soft, young voice on the other end. Hi, this is Lila. You sent me a letter. I want to know who you are. Cynthia's eyes filled with tears. Then let's begin. The night was still when the phone rang. Cynthia's heart raced as she stared at the screen. Unknown number. Wichita area code. She hesitated, breath shallow, before answering. Hello. For a beat, only soft static hummed. Then a young voice. Gentle, nervous, unsure. Hi. This is Lila. Lila Miller. You sent me a letter about my mom. Cynthia's throat tightened. She closed her eyes briefly, steadying herself. Yes, I'm your aunt. Silence stretched, heavy and uncomfortable. I don't understand. I know, Cynthia whispered. This is a lot, and I don't expect you to believe me right away. But I'm hoping you'll let me explain. Lila's breath trembled through the speaker. Did you know her? My birth mom, I mean. I did, Cynthia said softly. She was my sister. Her name was Janine. She loved you, more than anything. There was a sharp inhale on the other end. They told me she was troubled, that she didn't want to raise me. Cynthia's heart broke right then. That's not true, Lila. She fought hard for you. Circumstances, illness, forced her hand. But giving up? She never did. Silence again. Only the soft crackle of emotion between two people separated by time and tragedy. I don't know what to say, Lila admitted, voice shaking. You don't have to say anything right now, Cynthia replied gently. I just want to meet you. When you're ready. After a long pause, Lila whispered, Okay, not tonight, but soon. Soon is perfect, Cynthia said, her voice tender. Thank you, Lila. When the call ended, Cynthia sat motionless. Her entire world had shifted. Again. 3 days later, Cynthia and Deshawn drove side by side toward Wichita. The closer they got, the more tense the air became. Deshawn drove mostly in silence, knuckles pale against the steering wheel. What if she hates us? He muttered quietly. She won't, Cynthia assured him. But she wasn't sure. Or worse, he added, eyes dark. What if she just doesn't care? What if we mean nothing to her? Cynthia swallowed hard. That was the real fear. Not rejection, but irrelevance. Then we accept it, Cynthia finally said. But at least she'll know the truth. That's all we owe her. The chance to know. They drove in silence after that, neither needing to say more. They met Lila at a small, sunlit cafe on the edge of town. Cynthia spotted her immediately through the window. She looked like Janine. The same shaped eyes, the same stubborn mouth, the same flicker of caution beneath polite curiosity. Lila stood when they approached. Hi, she said softly. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed the storm underneath. Hi, Lila, Cynthia said kindly. Hey, Deshawn offered awkwardly. So, you're my family? Lila asked after they sat. Deshawn smiled faintly. Looks like it. I'm your brother. Half-brother, technically. But I don't care much about halves. Lila's eyes widened slightly. Her walls softened a little. And you? She asked Cynthia. I'm your aunt, Cynthia said. Janine was my little sister. Lila fidgeted with her cup, tension radiating off her. This is crazy, she muttered. We know, Cynthia said gently. We didn't expect to find you either. Why now? Lila asked suddenly, voice sharp. Cynthia leaned forward, vulnerable. Because life doesn't give do-overs, Lila. It gives regrets. And second chances. This is ours. Lila stared, eyes glistening. I don't know if I want this, she whispered, voice cracking. My parents, the Millers, they're my real family. I love them. Deshawn nodded immediately. You should. That's good. No one's asking you to replace them. Then what do you want? Silence. Then Cynthia said it plainly. Just a chance to know you. Lila's walls cracked just slightly. I'll think about it. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no. Over the next few weeks, something fragile but real began to form. Lila texted them sometimes, asking about Janine, about what she was like as a sister, as a mother. Cynthia told her stories, funny, heartbreaking, real. Deshawn sent her photos, the pendant, old childhood memories. Little by little, Lila's guarded tone softened, until one day Lila asked, would you come back? I want to know more. In person. It was Deshawn who answered, named the time and place. When they arrived for their next meeting, Lila greeted them with a small, shy smile. But she wasn't alone. Standing next to her was an older man with sharp eyes and a cautious expression. This is Marcus, Lila said. He's a private investigator. My parents hired him years ago to quietly keep tabs on my birth family history. They didn't want to tell me everything. Cynthia and Deshawn exchanged tense glances. Marcus stepped forward. I think you all should sit down, he said calmly but firmly, because what I've found about Janine changes everything. The room fell deathly still. She didn't die the way you think she did, Marcus said gravely. There was no death certificate. There was no confirmed body. Lila's eyes went wide. What are you saying? Marcus looked at Cynthia and Deshawn. I'm saying, I believe Janine didn't die back then. I believe she disappeared. And there's evidence she might still be alive. Cynthia's world tilted. Deshawn stared in stunned silence. Lila's hand flew to her mouth. No, that's impossible. Not impossible, Marcus said quietly. Just hidden. The family reunion they thought was healing had just become a new, darker mystery. Because if Janine was alive, why had she stayed hidden all this time? And who, or what, was she hiding from? The room fell silent after Marcus dropped the bombshell. Janine. Not dead. Not confirmed. Just gone. Cynthia's mind spun. She had spent 2 decades mourning her sister, blaming herself. Now, all of that grief twisted into something else entirely. How can she still be alive? Cynthia's voice cracked as she clutched the table's edge. Marcus stayed calm, professional. I can't say for certain, but there were inconsistencies in the church's record. No proper death notice. No official confirmation of her passing. And recently, Janine's social security number was flagged for a rental application in Arizona, just 2 years ago. 2 years. Deshawn leaned forward, jaw tight. So you're saying she was out there this whole time living? Marcus nodded grimly. Possibly. But whoever she became, she covered her tracks well. No taxes. No credit cards. Just that one slip, the rental app, before vanishing again. Lila looked between them, her eyes wide and brimming with disbelief. So why? Why would she disappear like that? That was the question no one wanted to ask aloud. Cynthia couldn't sleep that night. The walls of her spacious home felt suffocating. The awards, the elegant photos, they mocked her now. All she could see was Janine, laughing on summer days, crying during their last argument. Gone, but maybe not gone at all. By morning, she called Deshawn. We're going to Arizona. No debate. Deshawn asked, half expecting hesitation. None. Cynthia's voice was steady. If there's a chance, I have to find her. By afternoon, bags were packed. Lila insisted on joining. If she's alive, I need to know her too, she said firmly, brushing off Cynthia's concerns. She's my mother, whether she wanted to be or not. So they became a trio, aunt, son, daughter, bound together by blood, regret, and the pull of answers long overdue. They arrived in Phoenix under the scorching desert sun. Marcus's lead took them to a modest rental complex. By now, the tenant, registered under a fake name, was long gone. But Cynthia knocked anyway. An elderly neighbor answered. "Oh, you mean Mara," the woman said, frowning. "Lived here a year or so. Quiet lady. Wore scarves all the time. Moved out quick, middle of the night, it seemed." Cynthia's heart jumped at the word scarves. Janine had always loved them. Did she say where she was going? The woman shook her head. Just said she couldn't stay. Too dangerous. Dangerous? That single word shifted everything. They searched the empty unit anyway. In the closet, Deshawn found a small, dusty box wedged behind a loose panel. Inside were letters and a photograph. The letters were unsent, addressed to LJ. Cynthia's stomach flipped. "LJ?" she asked aloud. Lila's voice was barely above a whisper. "Lila Janine." Cynthia's throat tightened. The letters were meant for her. "She never forgot you," Cynthia said tearfully as Lila read aloud. "I watch you from afar. I can't come close. It's too dangerous. But know this, you are loved. Always. But dangerous from who?" As night fell, Marcus called them urgently. "You need to come to my hotel. Now." They rushed over. Marcus, pale and tense, gestured toward his laptop, while digging into the aliases Janine used. "I found something. Her last few identities? She stayed at women's shelters, safe houses, all marked confidential." "Safe houses?" Deshawn asked, stunned. "That's not all," Marcus said grimly. "Her file was tagged under a witness protection database, flagged for possible involvement in major federal investigation. It's sealed tight, but from what I can gather, Janine ran not just from family drama. She ran from someone dangerous." Lila's voice cracked. "Who would want to hurt her?" "I don't know yet," Marcus admitted. "But this goes deeper. Janine wasn't hiding from you. She was protecting you." Silence settled like heavy smoke. For years, they thought Janine abandoned them. In truth, she had been shielding them from something dark. By the next morning, everything had changed. Cynthia stood on the motel balcony, gazing at the Arizona sunrise. Deshawn approached quietly. "You okay?" "No," she said honestly. "But I'm ready." "Ready for what?" "To find the truth. All of it." Behind them, Lila joined quietly. "We deserve to know." Cynthia nodded slowly. "Janine left to protect us. But now we protect her, wherever she is." As they prepared to head deeper into the desert, chasing shelter records and shadowy trails, one thing was clear. This wasn't just about closure anymore. This was about saving Janine before whatever she ran from caught up again. The journey wasn't over. In fact, it had only just begun. Morning broke in shades of dull orange and burnt gold as Cynthia, Deshawn, and Lila loaded up the rental car. They were leaving Phoenix behind, headed for something much colder despite the desert heat. The search wasn't about comfort now. It was about truth. No matter where it led, Marcus had handed them everything he could find. A thin file, sparse notes, a single thread pulling them to Yuma, a town hugging the Mexican border. That's where Janine's trail went cold. If she was running from something federal, Marcus had warned them, you'll have to tread lightly. People who disappear often do so for a reason. The weight of his words followed them like the dry, scorching wind as they drove. Yuma wasn't friendly. It wasn't hostile in the obvious sense. No pointed guns or glaring faces. But it was guarded, tight-lipped. "You folks lost. We don't talk about people who ain't here no more. Best to mind your own." At every small gas station, every dusty diner, walls went up. Deshawn clenched his jaw as they left yet another grocery store empty-handed. "This is ridiculous." "No," Cynthia said, voice distant. "This is fear." Lila swallowed hard. What was Janine running from that still scares people today? No one had an answer, but the deeper they pushed, the more it became clear. Janine had crossed paths with something dangerous here. Late afternoon, the breakthrough came from an unlikely place. A teenage boy at a food truck, leaning against the window while Cynthia picked up bottled water. "You asking about Mara?" Cynthia stiffened. "Mara, the woman with scarves?" The boy nodded slowly, eyes darting around. "She used to stay at that old trailer near the edge of town. Said her name was Mara, but everyone knew she wasn't from here." "What happened to her?" Cynthia asked softly. "She left after some men started asking about her." "Not police." "Worse." "Worse how?" Deshawn pressed. "I don't know, cartel maybe. Folks said she was mixed up in something she shouldn't be. That's why nobody talks." That word again, danger. Janine, or Mara, had not just been hiding from family responsibilities. She had been running from serious predators. Night fell as they arrived at the outskirts. An abandoned trailer, wind howling through shattered windows, sand piling at the door. They hesitated. This wasn't just about memories anymore. "Stay here," Deshawn told Cynthia and Lila. But Cynthia shook her head. "No, not this time. I'm not turning away again." Together, they pushed the door open. Inside, dusty furniture, forgotten clothes, and papers. On a rusted table was a journal. Lila flipped it open carefully. "I thought I could stay. Thought I could outrun them. But they found me again. I can't risk Lila or anyone else. If they ever come here, I need to be gone." The last entry was dated 3 years prior. She knew they were closing in. Cynthia whispered. "So where did she go?" Lila asked. A creak made them freeze. Behind them, a silhouette. For a second, time stretched thin, until a frail old man stepped into the moonlight. "You shouldn't be here." "Do you know Mara?" Cynthia asked. The man, eyes sharp beneath heavy wrinkles, nodded. "She was a kind woman. Didn't deserve what happened." "What happened?" Deshawn's voice was tense. The old man hesitated. "She was forced out. They told her if she didn't disappear, they'd hurt the girl." Lila stiffened. "Me? You?" the old man confirmed. "She left to protect you." Before they could ask more, the old man glanced nervously outside. "Go," he whispered urgently. "They're still watching. Not safe here." He shoved a small crumpled paper into Cynthia's hand before retreating back into the shadows. They rushed back to the car and unfolded the note. It was simple. A name, Luz Maria Ramirez, and beneath it, Nogales, Mexico. Cynthia and Deshawn stared at each other, realization dawning. "She crossed the border," Cynthia said breathlessly. "She didn't just disappear," Lila added, eyes wide. "She fled to survive." But the choice before them now was no longer safe. Nogales was cartel country. Crossing over without knowing what lay ahead. It wasn't just reckless, it could be deadly. In the darkened car, Deshawn stared at the border checkpoint miles ahead. "Are we really going to do this?" he asked quietly. Cynthia didn't hesitate. "I didn't fight for her when she needed me last time." Her eyes gleamed with fierce determination. "I won't make that mistake again." Lila nodded, gripping Deshawn's hand. "We find her, no matter where she is." As the desert night swallowed them whole and the lights of the border checkpoint flickered in the distance, they knew there was no turning back.